Good evening. We are on agenda item 7. We are reconvening our meeting for the Whittier City Council. Let's go ahead and do roll call.
Councilmember Nordback, Vinatieri,
Here.
Henderson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Newcomer,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Here. We have been in closed session. Mr. Jones, any report?
There's nothing to report out at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. You all became so quiet. I wish my grandchildren could have seen that and learned a little bit from that. We appreciate that. We would like to begin with our pledge, and our Assistant City Manager, Nancy Mendez, will lead us.
Please rise. Place your hand over your heart and join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have an announcement that I've been asked to read. The Whittier City Council is seeking applicants to fill a vacancy on the Puente Hills Habitat Preservation Authority Citizens Technical Advisory Committee, CTAC. The committee consists of 9 members, 3 of whom represent the city of Whittier. CTAC members are individuals with skills or talents in the areas of ecology, outdoor recreation, graphics or planning, environmental interpretation, parentheses, education, or landscape architecture. Applications will be accepted through August 1st, 2011. Residents of the city are eligible to apply. Interested individuals may obtain application packets from the city clerk's office at City Hall by calling 562-567-9850 or by visiting the city's website at www.cityofwhittier.org. Packets are also on the table in the back of the council chamber tonight. And before we do our presentations, I would like to have Assistant Fire Chief Jerry Hensel come up to the podium. Jerry, where are you? Come on up. Jerry visits with us periodically. We did not prearrange to have him here with us tonight, but we appreciate him being here. And with the size of the crowd, Jerry, could you just comment on why we have a posted number that can be in the chambers and why it's important to stay within that number?
Just for crowd control and easy exit in case the worst case scenario were to happen. We post numbers on the walls to help protect us and remind us of those numbers and maintain the occupants load at a reasonable level that everyone can fit out through the exit doors to a common exit outside the building.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're
and we
welcome.
appreciate you being here with us this evening. We do have chairs downstairs by our television screen in the lobby with a live feed if any of you feel that you would like seating. After our presentations, we will be taking a short break. And when we get to the point of having oral communications, if there are those residents or those individuals that are downstairs, we will make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak during oral communication that wishes to do so. And so at this time, we're going to have a presentation, Business of the Month, the Collard Rose Optical Laboratory. Jay and Letty Hernandez, would you come up, please? And also Rob Hernandez and Jen, come on up. So earlier this evening when I was saying hello to Jay, he said, "Are all these people here to see me receive this presentation?" Come on over here.
Sure.
Made them feel very good, thank you. And as you know, we do honor businesses once a month, and we are very privileged tonight to be able to tell you a little bit about the Collard Rose Optical Laboratory and to honor their business as the Business of the Month. Established in 1942, Collard Rose Optical Laboratory is one of the oldest and most respected optical laboratories in California. The family-run business, operated by Jay and Letty and by Jen and Rob Hernandez, attributes its success to their professional and courteous staff. Collard Rose has almost 50 employees, which includes skilled technicians, customer service representatives, and sales staff. As a full-service laboratory and optical products wholesaler, Collard Rose provides new lens technology, utilizing the most advanced equipment and processes in the industry. Collard Rose is an avid supporter of the optometry profession and provides financial assistance to students of Southern California College of Optometry. The family, which has owned the business since 1975 when it was still located on Greenleaf Avenue, are local Whittier residents and active in the community. Collard Rose is one of the city's top 20 sales-producing tax businesses. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Jay and Letty. In addition to being wonderful parents, as their son and daughter-in-law are as well, Jay served on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club for many, many years. And Jay and Letty have been major contributors to the Boys and Girls Club, in particular the Teen Center. The Boys and Girls Club will be recognizing Jay and Letty at their gala on October 22nd by presenting them with a Lee Owens Award due to their support and contributions to the club. And so it's my honor to present this certificate to you and to your son and daughter-in-law as well.
I saw one flash.
Okay, ready? Thank you very much. Their place on Greenleaf is right across from Whittier High School, and
Philadelphia.
oh, I'm sorry, Philadelphia. Greenleaf's the other way. Okay, right across from Whittier High School, and in addition to the business, they own a wonderful, is it Victorian? Would that be correct? The Victorian home next door that they have restored, refurbished, and is just really exquisite. And we appreciate your attention to detail. Let them make a few comments.
We thank you very much, Kathy. You're too generous with your compliments, and we want to express our thanks to the City Council and staff. Thank you very much.
And now, do we have a representative from the chamber here tonight to give us our chamber report?
You do.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Rudy Hernandez, owner of RMH Dance Sport and Productions, and also a member of the Whittier Chamber Board of Directors. It is part of the Chamber's mission to support the business community through legislative advocacy and economic development. As you know, the County of Los Angeles is going through the process of setting new district boundaries. Tonight, I am here to restate the Chamber's position that we adamantly want to remain in District 4 under the leadership of Supervisor Don Knabe. And we encourage Whittier businesses and residents to send an email to knabe.com/redistricting or comserve@bos.lacounty.gov, asking that the A2 plan be adopted so that more of Whittier be included in District 4. Don has been a wonderful advocate for Whittier businesses, and we do not want to lose him as a partner. All of you, with the support of leaders within our community, have worked for years with county and state officials to secure new development opportunities in Whittier. We feel losing Don Knabe as our supervisor could adversely affect the forward momentum of key initiatives, including the Nellis project, at a time when Whittier's door is opening to great opportunities. Whittier's relationship with Supervisor Knabe is a model for how government should work with constituents and local and county government for the betterment of the population. Again, we encourage as many residents as possible to email knabe.com/redistricting or comserve@bos.lacounty.gov before August 9th to express their desire to see Whittier remain in the 4th District under Supervisor Don Knabe. Also, a few quick event reminders for your calendar. Wednesday, July 27th is our summer camp session entitled Self-Defense in the Workplace. It is being presented by Aloisio Silvia Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu School. It is from 11:30 to 1 at the Chamber office and is $10 to attend. On Friday, July 29th, we are celebrating a ribbon cutting at 1 p.m. at Tutti Frutti. It's a yogurt place over at the Whittier Marketplace. 11743 Whittier Boulevard. Our next Wake Up Whittier is being hosted by the Whittier Uptown Association on Wednesday, August 17th, on the rooftop of the Bright parking structure, conveniently located across the street from my studio, RMH Dance Sports Center. And finally, the 33rd Annual Hathaway Golf Classic is Monday, September 12th at Friendly Hills Country Club. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rudy. Good evening. We have a report from Kara Medrano from Congresswoman Linda Sanchez's office. Kara?
Hi, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. I won't take up too much of your time. However, I just wanted to announce that the Congresswoman Linda Sanchez will be hosting her annual senior fair. It will actually take place on Wednesday, August 31st at Paramount Park. Transportation will be provided by the Senior Center on Walnut, so if you want more information about transportation, they can call either the Senior Center or our office. We will have over 30 vendors from local organizations, agencies to provide health screenings, veterans assistance, consumer protection education, job training, and of course, we like to take care of our seniors, so we'll be having free lunch for them. Admission is free and there's no RSVP. I did leave several flyers with Nancy Mendez, so I hope that you would help us outreach. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kara.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to item 11C. Mr. Helvey.
Yes, as you know, and most of the community knows, we have asked Community Conservation Solutions to provide us with their opinion on the effects of the proposed CUP application, or the CUP application we've received from Matrix Oil on our Prop A purchased property in the hills. They have provided a report, and at the point in time that Mrs. Feldman, or Ms. Feldman, comes up to the dais to greet you, we are going to place a copy of that report on the rear table for members of the public to be able to see. There are two documents that will be presented. One is the CCI report that her firm put together. The other is a legal opinion from Akins Gump, and that will also be provided in the back. After Ms. Feldman gives her presentation, Kim Barlow from our city attorney's office will give a summary of the Akins Gump legal opinion. And for all of you who would like to get a copy, they will be on our website first thing tomorrow morning so that you can download it, and then you won't have to pay to have it printed. So with that, if you're prepared to accept Mrs. Feldman's report, she can come up and tell you what she has determined. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and a very full house. So is this going to be up on the screen?
Yes.
It's on
Yes.
our screen now. That's a.
There you go.
I want to make sure the remote's working. This report is a review and an evaluation of the proposed Whittier oil and gas project for its consistency with Proposition A. And certain limitations that I want to make clear at the beginning about this report. It was limited to an analysis of the consistency of the language and the intent of LA County Proposition A, both 1992 and 1996, and the Proposition A implementing documents. And that includes here both the texts of both propositions, 92 and 96, the engineer's report, which underlies Proposition A, the project agreements between the city and the regional park district, and the procedural guidelines related to those documents. It's based only on the October 2010 draft environmental impact report. It doesn't reflect any changes that were made in the June 2011 draft environmental impact report that was recirculated. And it is not an endorsement by either any of the report authors or by Community Conservation Solutions of the project. The report was funded by the City of Whittier. And the data that we base this report on our analysis on is, again, the draft environmental impact report, October 2010, the legal analysis that's been mentioned already by Carlisle Hall at Aiken, Kump, Strauss, Hauer, and Feld, the resources management plan for the Puente Hills Landfill Native Habitat Preservation Authority that was prepared by LSA Associates, information provided by the city, and information provided from Matrix Oil Corporation. Community Conservation Solutions is a nonprofit organization. We focus on the conflicts that occur when people and nature interact. Often they are conflicts, certainly the challenges. And we believe in solving problems, and that is what we do. We work on a wide range of projects, a range from wilderness, parks, beaches, watersheds, recreation, mixed-use developments. And we have a long track record in successfully addressing complex and challenging conservation issues. As probably many of you know, I provided the original vision for and authored Proposition A, directed the state legislative effort to secure passage of the authorizing statute, formed a county-wide Citizens Advisory Committee, coordinated with the county and all 88 cities, and directed both of the campaigns in 1992 and 1996. So I know a little bit about Proposition A. One of the major reasons that Community Conservation Solutions is involved in this review and analysis and took this on, we believe that it's very important to provide a very clear review and evaluation of Proposition A as it relates to this project, because it's a potential precedent for similar situations related to Proposition A that might arise elsewhere in LA County. Here are the questions that we evaluated. Can the proposed oil project be carried out in a manner consistent with Proposition A and its implementing documents? What must the city do to comply with the requirements and the intent of Proposition A? How much parkland area would be changed from park and open space uses as a result of the proposed oil project and would have to be replaced with comparable parkland pursuant to the requirements of Proposition A? What actions are needed by LA County, the Regional Park and Open Space District, and the city? So I know some of this information will be old hat to many people, but we know that this PowerPoint might be viewed by a number of people who aren't as familiar with it as you. So this is the regional context of the preserve. We know you're familiar with where it's located, but just as a brief review. So here's the preserve. This is the Puente Chino Hills Wildlife Corridor. And because the land that's proposed for the project site is an integral part of the preserve, this analysis and review considers the entire preserve as well as the project site. It's the proposed oil project site there in the preserve. I'd like to also to mention that, again, as many of you know, the city has been a leader in creating the preserve and the corridor, and that this proposed project could potentially, if it goes forward, provide a revenue source for assisting with restoration, acquisition, and open space adjacent to the preserve, improving trails and public access, ongoing maintenance, as well as revenue to the city. LA County Proposition A was a countywide ballot measure, originally passed in 1992 by county voters and amended again in 1996 by county voters. It provided so to date, about $1 billion in funding for parks, recreation, beaches, habitat, and open space. It created the LA County Regional Park and Open Space District, which is synonymous with the boundaries of LA County. The Regional Park and Open Space District Board of Directors is the LA County Board of Supervisors. They sit as the Board of Directors as well. It's funded by property owners throughout LA County. And to date, it has resulted in the acquisition of over 21,000 acres of parks and habitat and open space, many facilities that have been constructed, thousands of acres that have been improved or restored, and it's provided benefits throughout the county. It was a special benefit assessment district, and projects that were identified in Prop A have conferred special benefit on all property of the district. Proposition A's intent is to protect and increase parks, open space, and habitat. Its emphasis is on projects with regional benefits throughout LA County. Again, it provided funding to acquire, improve, and restore parks, recreation facilities, rivers, beaches, and natural habitat lands throughout the county. Provided funds to the county, to all 88 cities in the county, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and many nonprofit organizations. It included nearly 100 specific regional projects, including $17.3 million to acquire natural park and open space lands in what were then called the Whittier Hills, now called the Puente Hills, and we use those terms interchangeably here. The lands, this is a map here, will show you the lands that were purchased with Prop A funds in the Whittier Puente Hills. So again, here's the preserve and the corridor. This is the subject property, lands that were purchased with Prop A funds, the former Chevron and Unocal properties. This boundary is also the boundary of the proposed mineral rights lease area. And again, just for reference, the proposed oil project site. I'm going to give you a summary now of the funds that were provided to acquire lands in the Whittier Hills. Section 8B was a specific category that included specific grants to cities for regional projects for parks, recreation, wildlife habitat, and natural lands purposes. All the projects in this category, to be included in this category, had to meet specified regional project criteria. Had to show that they benefited people and property through a wide region. Subsection 2QQ earmarks $9.3 million to the city of Whittier for, quote, acquisition of natural lands and development of related facilities in the Whittier Hills. Section 8C allocated funds to the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy for acquisition of park and open space lands and development of related recreational facilities. Subsection 6 of Section 8C earmarked $7 million of the Conservancy's funds for expenditure in the Whittier Hills for the preservation of park and open space lands. Section 11, which was the competitive grant fund section for acquisition, development, and improvement of real property for trails and public access, earmarked $1 million for use within the Whittier Hills. Provisions of Proposition A include Section 16, probably one of the most important sections for this conversation, anticipated future changes of use due to circumstances that were unforeseeable at the time that the measure was drafted. It specifically requires that parklands that are purchased with Prop A funds whose uses are changed must be replaced. Section 16B details what grant recipients must do, in this case the city of Whittier, if they propose to change the use of all or a part of parkland or open space purchased with Prop A funds. Again, requires that acquired lands be replaced if the land use is changed to a non-Proposition A use. The underlying intent here is to ensure that there is no net loss of parklands in the specific project area where funds were originally allocated. This is important because it maintains the consistency with the regional benefits that are conferred on property of the district by the Whittier Puente Hills acquisition. It's also consistent with the overall intent of Proposition A to increase and protect park and open space lands. And it's consistent with the regional benefit analysis of the engineer's report, which underlies Proposition A. The key provision, again, is to replace changed use acres with lands with comparable or higher open space and habitat value. This applies to a change of use of all or part of parkland that's purchased with Prop A funds. And the intent was that be fair market value, and this is called for in Prop A, fair market value, at the time of the changed use or sale or lease of the property, or the proceeds from selling or leasing the parkland acreage, whichever of those two is greatest. The replacement funds must be used for a purpose that's authorized in the category under which the original grant was funded. The authorized purpose here is acquisition of natural lands in the Whittier Puente Hills for habitat and open space. The replacement must help improve and protect the preserve's overall ecological viability as functioning natural habitat. The highest priority, again, because the category from which the funds were originally allocated was for acquisition in the Whittier Hills, and that money was used to buy this particular subject property in this case. The highest priority is to replace the changed use acreage by acquiring other comparable or higher value lands, higher open space value lands, immediately adjacent to the subject property or to the rest of the Puente Hills Preserve. If for some reason that is not possible, the second priority would be to acquire replacement parklands, again, comparable or higher value open space and habitat, as near to the Puente Hills as possible. Proposition A's requirements, again, very focused on preserving the original Proposition A intent and regional benefit, again, the intent to protect and increase park and open space lands. To do this, the city can expend the funds itself to acquire natural lands, as just discussed, in the Whittier Puente Hills, or can reimburse the district's parks fund so that the district can do so. In addition, Proposition A requires that there be no violation of federal regulations regarding the use of proceeds from tax-exempt bonds. The city cannot enter into any contract, agreement, or lease that, in the district's opinion, violates federal regulations restricting the use of funds from tax-exempt bonds. Actions that are needed by LA County, the Regional Park District, and the City of Whittier include the following. The conditional lease agreement between Matrix Clayton Williams and the city can only become operative if the district first approves the lease, if the district releases the land acquired with Prop A funds from protected status, the city completes the California Environmental Quality Act environmental review and improves the final environmental impact report, and the city issues a permit to Matrix Clayton Williams for the oil project. It's a picture of the preserve. 30 miles east of downtown LA. It's bounded by the San Gabriel River, Chino Hills, La Habra Heights, Whittier, Rowland Heights, and Hacienda Heights. And it's managed by the Puente Hills Landfill Native Habitat Preservation Authority. It is the western end of the 31-mile Puente Chino Hills Wildlife Corridor, one of the most studied wildlife corridors in North America. It's a vital habitat connection between the Puente Hills and the Santa Ana Mountains in the Cleveland National Forest. It's nearly 4,000 acres, 3,860. It's bordered by 2 landfills, a cemetery, and numerous developed urban areas. It also provides habitat for many Southern California native plant communities, including chaparral, coastal sage scrub, grassland, riparian, and various types of woodland habitat. And it's home to many native wildlife species, including the federally listed coastal California gnatcatcher and several other species of special status and special concern. And it's also an important stopover for many migratory birds. It also has many areas of fragmented and degraded habitat. This site is all eucalyptus, which is a horrifically invasive plant species that provides very poor habitat. It has many old roads, and here's an example of one in this picture. It also provides many trails, 27 miles of public trails, 6 miles of which are on the subject property. There's a core habitat management area that makes up about 1/5 of the preserve. It's closed to public use, and this is to allow habitat recovery of degraded areas over time, and includes high-quality native habitat that provides undisturbed habitat for wildlife. This is the preserve. This is the high-quality habitat in green. Disturbed lands that are requiring restoration as identified in the resource management plan. This is the core habitat management area that's closed to public access. Again, the many areas that are fragmented and degraded, and many restoration needs. There's 1,200 acres have been identified that need habitat restoration, and 600 of those have been identified as high priority for restoration. And there are many acquisition needs that the preserve still has, and nearly 4,000 acres are needed to be acquired to protect the long-term habitat viability and ecological function of the preserve and the wildlife corridor. The lands that are purchased with Proposition A funds from Chevron and Unocal, the 1,290-acre subject property, historically known as the Whittier Main oil field. It's an active oil and gas field for over 100 years, owned and operated by Chevron and Unocal. Had nearly 550 oil wells, numerous oil and gas production facilities and roads, and was purchased by the city with Prop A funds in 1995. The subject property today has nearly 60% of its area in the core habitat management area, includes 18 miles of old roads, 6 miles of public trails. So here again is the preserve and the core habitat management area. Here is the subject property, the lands that were purchased with Prop A funds, formerly Chevron and Unocal properties. Again, the boundary of the proposed mineral rights lease area. This is the proposed oil project site, the proposed site access via the landfill road, and proposed emergency access road. This is a picture of an artist rendering of the oil project site on the left as seen from the air, and on the right as seen from the ground. Proposed project components of the proposed oil project: a central oil and gas processing facility, enclosed concrete cellar for up to 60 underground wells and well test stations, a 15-foot wall around the processing facility and the well cellar, truck loading facility, emergency facilities including fire hydrants and shutoffs, underground oil, gas, water pipelines, and electrical conduit, and connecting roads within the project site, grading and fuel modification around the 7-acre project site, internal roads, a 1.25-mile access road between the project site and Whittier's Savage Canyon landfill, a 0.33-mile emergency access road between the project site and Catalina Avenue, temporary construction staging near the drilling site, and a drill rig height up to 147 feet that would be visible from certain locations on the preserve. This is our analysis of the changed and disturbed parkland acres, again relating back to the Proposition A requirement that those acres whose parkland use is changed must be replaced with higher or comparable value habitat open space. So per Prop A, getting ahead of myself, changed parkland acres must be replaced with lands with comparable or higher open space and habitat value. The proposed oil project's surface land uses result in a changed use. Subsurface activities, because they happen underground, would not change the surface uses for habitat, public open space, or recreation. Disturbance to parkland acres during construction, as called for in the draft EIR, would be temporary and would be fully restored, called for being fully restored and mitigated. So to walk through this chart here, we have this 3 categories: the proposed project, fuel modification zone, and then totals, of course. So the first, the pads, the integrated trucking facility and the central processing operations, consist of 7.1 acres. Internal roadways, in this case the emergency access, is calculated at 50% of the total because it's an existing roadway. But because this existing roadway now is used just for internal use and rangers and so on, but whose use would change, it's still a road, but its use would change, we've calculated at 50% of the total, which is a half an acre. So the total changed acres for the project site internal roadways would be 7.6 acres. The acres you see here in the fuel modification zone are per LA County's fire requirements, again as cited in the draft EIR. So 0.8 of an acre on the internal roadways, that's a 10-foot width on either side of the road for the length of the road, and 5.7 acres total there. The landfill road, which is assumed again at 50% of the total because it's an existing road, but again, the kind of use that the road would see would change. So still a road, but becomes more of a road. So we've calculated that total acreage, assuming a 26-foot width, 1.52 acres. And the grading and widening that is called for in the draft EIR would consist of another 2.52 acres. So the total changed land use acres, 11.64. Fuel modification zone is currently written, be 8.23 for a total possibility of 19.87 acres. Additional lands that would be temporarily disturbed due to construction grading, construction staging, and parking areas. Because the draft EIR calls for those to be fully restored and mitigated, they don't constitute changed use acres. But for purposes of this analysis, we wanted to look at the maximum acres whose use could be changed or disturbed, and that is a total of 32.63 or 33 acres. Pipelines and conduits are called to be installed underground under existing roadways, and so they have not been added to this calculation. So the change in disturbed parkland acres, as far as the percentage of the surface change of the subject property, is about just about 2%. So 98% of the subject property's surface uses wouldn't be changed, and total change in disturbed is about 3%. Looking at that as a total of the preserve as a whole, it's about 1% of the total preserve. There would be a maximum that would be changed or disturbed. So the proposed project would change the use of 12 to 20 parkland acres. plus an additional 8.2 acres if the fuel modification zones aren't fully mitigated. Additional changed areas could get added to these totals, however, if fuel modification zones aren't fully mitigated, if pipelines or conduit are installed outside existing roadways and that disturbed land is not restored and fully mitigated, if LA County Fire Department requires additional fuel modification beyond what's described in the draft DIR, and if there are other actions down the road that result in a changed use that is not fully restored and mitigated. The project would provide funding for the preserve and additionally oil and gas royalties and would generate $500,000 in lease payments to the city from Matrix Clayton Williams, annual funding for the Puente Hills Landfill Native Habitat Preservation Authority, royalties of between $400 million to $1 billion over 25 years, depending on the number of wells that are permitted by the city, when those wells begin producing, oil and gas production levels, and oil and gas prices. So to conclude, summarize our findings, that, and again, reminding you that this is an analysis of consistency with Proposition A, and is not a review of the California Environmental Quality Act or the impacts of the project, that the proposed oil project can be implemented in a manner consistent and compatible with Proposition A's requirements. Approximately 12 to 20 acres of changed use parkland must be replaced to ensure no net loss of parkland. Again, this serves to underscore and maintain Proposition A's intent, which is to protect and increase park, open space, and habitat lands. Proposition A allows for a change of use of lands purchased with Proposition A funds. It provides specific steps that the city and the district must follow. The city must comply with Proposition A's requirements for replacement of the changed use acreage. The use of those additional acres could change, again, just to reiterate, this is important, if the fuel modification zones aren't fully mitigated, if more fuel modifications are required by the county, or if there are other actions that result in changed uses that are not fully restored. The replacement of the changed use acreage must preserve the original Proposition A intent, protecting, increasing open space, park, and habitat, and the regional benefit to property throughout the district. This can be achieved through either acquisition or a land swap. The land swap is defined in Proposition A, or acquisition is defined in Proposition A as including land swaps. The highest priorities for the city or the district to purchase lands adjacent to the subject property or to the Puente Hills Preserve that are of comparable or higher open space or habitat value. The second priority, if that's not possible, is to purchase lands as near to the Puente Hills Preserve as possible that are of comparable or higher open space or habitat value. The replacement of the change use acreage must preserve the original Prop A intent and regional benefit to property throughout the district. If higher quality land or land with important wildlife habitat or open space value can be purchased, this would compensate for the loss of the changed use acreage and would meet Proposition A's requirement of no net loss of park and open space lands from the Puente Hills area as a result of this project. Approvals that are needed from LA County, the Regional Park and Open Space District, are they must approve the lease between the city and Matrix Clayton Williams. Their approval is required to release the Proposition A lands from protected status. And actions required of the city of Whittier: complete the CEQA environmental review process, approve a final environmental impact report, conduct an analysis of federal regulations and use of tax-exempt bonds as they pertain to the proposed oil project, provide this analysis to LA County. And it is our recommendation that royalties from the oil project should be shared with other areas of LA County for regional park, recreation, habitat, and open space projects consistent with Proposition A. So it recognizes the role of Proposition A in providing the opportunity for the proposed oil project, acknowledges the pivotal role of Prop A in purchasing the subject property. It's consistent with the specific intent and the spirit of Prop A, and would help maintain the regional benefit to property throughout the district. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
And before we go to questions, Mr. Jones, up until this point, you've cautioned us as council members to be very careful in not expressing an opinion, et cetera, until we're in a public hearing. Give us your advice on us being able to ask questions tonight since we're not in a public hearing.
Again, the same admonishment
continues, and that is that until we reach the public hearing stage where you're actually acting as a legislative body in a quasi-judicial role, making that determination, you cannot express an opinion or through your questions imply or infer a conclusion. In this particular process, it's appropriate to ask questions for informational purposes and to solicit a response from Mrs. Feldman that will give you and the public as a whole more information as you ask those questions.
Okay, so with that, Bob, would you like to start?
Well, I've been very interested and followed very carefully the presentation that you've prepared, and we've worked together on it for several months, trying to get you the information you needed. The net outcome of this would basically say that A, you do believe it is appropriate is provided for in Prop A under sections 16A and B, basically to replace the property as long as it's we fully replace the property either by actual land swap or by providing money necessary for acquisition for a comparable amount of property. Is that right?
Section 16 lays out a process for grant recipients, in this case, the City of Whittier, to follow if you're changing all or a part of the use of that parkland. And we believe, very specific in requiring that you replace it with comparable or higher open space or habitat value.
Right.
And that the intent, the underlying intent is that there be no net loss of parklands in the area for which those funds were originally earmarked, in this case, the Whittier/Puente Hills.
Right. And your feeling is that the intent of Proposition A is that to the extent possible, if there is to be an agreement with the county, whether we actually have an obligation to pay money back to them, but within the intent of Proposition A and the intent of the Park District that was set up, that it would be reasonable to share some portion of those, provided it was proportionate to the overall benefit.
I certainly can't comment on the proportionality issue, but yes, we feel very strongly that the underlying intent of Proposition A speaks to that need, and certainly the regional benefit concerns that the Whittier project is a part of conferring on property throughout the district, and therefore royalties that might be provided as a result of that project kind of fall into that category and should be addressed in that manner.
Good. Thank you very much.
Joe?
Thank you for a nice presentation. You answered some of my questions, but I do have one that I'd like to, I think you talked about it. I have my notes here. You said that based upon these changed and disturbed parkland acres, I'm not sure which particular slide it was. Did I hear you say that there's that's a 2% of the total amount of acreage would be disturbed through this project?
We looked at the total amount of land, of surface land that would be changed or disturbed, and it's 2% of the subject property. It's a total of 3% if you look at both the changed and the disturbed. It's about 3% of the subject property.
Okay, so you have to look at the changed and the disturbed, and then you add those two together, and then you determine what that percentage is of the total amount?
That's what we did in our analysis. We looked at it both ways. If it's just the change is 2%, if you look at the change and the maximum that would be disturbed, again, as in the October 2010 draft DIR is currently written, then it's about 3%.
So to the extent that if you were working off the old DEIR, and that was, I believe there was they were looking at 3 different locations, and that's now been consolidated into one. Did the 3 recognize then, or is that what predicated the 3%?
Thank you for that question. I should have made clear that this analysis was of the environmentally superior alternative in that draft DIR. I apologize for not making that clear earlier. That looked at the consolidated site.
Okay.
And so those numbers reflect the consolidated site.
So the 3% then is a consolidated site?
That's right.
Okay.
I apologize for not making that clear. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Any more questions, Joe?
No.
Okay, Owen?
No questions, just appreciate the thoroughness of the report. Thank you.
And I appreciate the thorough report as well. I do have some questions Have any other lands funded by Prop A gone through the types of changes that you were analyzing in this report?
Nope, you're the first.
Boy, okay. And in regards to the land swap, the answer may be obvious, but I need to ask the question because of where we're located and because of our proximity to the Cleveland National Forest and Orange County. Must the land swap only occur within LA County when you consider the corridor and the proximity to Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a like district similar to Prop A in Orange County? Do they have a?
Not that I know of, but I wouldn't consider myself the last word on that.
And in regards to the proportionality issue, who or how do we receive guidance, information, ideas on that?
I think that's going to have to be a series of discussions that you hold with the Proposition A district, the LA County Regional Park and Open Space District, because they are going to be the ones that have to make a number of decisions here.
Okay.
So I'm sure they'll have some opinions on that.
And on page 5 of the report, where you talk about the lease being submitted to the district, at what point in the process is the lease submitted?
And I think I would defer to your city attorney for
Okay.
for that.
Well, I'll have them answer that later. And there was, on page 10, and maybe this would be answered by the city attorney as well, but I will ask the question. When you talk about item 2, the actions needed by the district and the city, what criteria does the district consider in approving the lease?
It has to be before the city issues the CUP.
Right.
So somewhere in
Right.
that time frame, but it's got to be
Right.
before you can do that. The district has to take that action.
So when the lease is submitted to the district, what does that governing board consider as they receive that lease and as they're considering whether or not they will approve it?
I can't speak for the park district.
Okay. But again, this will be a first for them.
That's correct.
Okay. And then on page 17, the last paragraph, in talking about the restoration, the mitigation would be required on a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 replacement basis with restoration to native habitat through revegetation. What drives that ratio, or is that built into Prop A?
No, that's actually right out of the draft EIR, the October 2010 draft EIR, speaking specifically there about the lands that would be temporarily disturbed during the construction phase. And the draft EIR requires that land to be restored, but also mitigated on a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 replacement basis, which is why we didn't include it as permanent changed use acreage.
And I have read that document, but I will admit I do not remember every detail of it. So, okay, that concludes my questions. Mr. Helvey, where do we go from this point?
Well, I think we can allow Ms. Feldman to take a well-deserved short break. And the next issue you have before you that's been transmitted tonight is the legal opinion. And it's entitled "A Legal Analysis of Whittier's Right to Extract Oil and Gas Resources Underlying Its Park and Open Space Properties in the Whittier Hills, consistent with longstanding California real estate principles and with Proposition A." And to help you, we've asked Kim Barlow, a partner at the firm of Jones and Mayer, to give you, if you will, an executive summary and answer your questions. And again, for members of the public who would like to read every line, that will be available tomorrow morning on the web. They'll also be available for purchase at Sir Speedy, but I think I'd take the free copy at the web if you have internet access. It's been prepared by Carlisle W. Hall, Jr. from Aiken, Gubb, Strauss, Hauer, and Feld, and I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly. It's July 2001.
Yeah, Mr.
Evening.
Helvey and Madam Mayor, I have asked Mrs. Mendez to pass out a copy of the Aiken Gump opinion to each of you in case you want to refer to it as we go through the summary.
Kim, is this different than the one we got like this?
Yeah, that's the CCS report. This is the Aiken Gump opinion.
We also received the.
Yes.
Received two.
Yeah, but this is just a copy for you in case you didn't have it with you at the dais.
Okay, but it's the same document.
It is indeed.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Kim.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Kimberly Hall Barlow on behalf of Jones and Mayer, here to summarize for you the 22-page report from Carlisle Hall, who, as you probably read from his biography, is something of an expert in the area of environmental land use. Probably the best summary I can give you of the report is and I hope will answer your question a little bit, Mayor Warner. Whittier's only legal obligation here is to use the revenues that it will derive from the change of use of a small portion of the surface area of the property, totaling less than 3%, to acquire equivalent replacement parkland. That's a general summary of the report. I do want to talk a little bit and just summarize the main points. Obviously, the beginning of the analysis is the factual information that Whittier is the fee simple owner. Fee simple owner means you own every bundle in the bundle of rights that go with a piece of land. People are familiar with easements, with leases, with other kinds of property interests. Fee simple means you own the whole ball of wax, okay? Whittier owns the 1,290 acres that Ms. Feldman was discussing in her report, and it was acquired with Proposition A funds. The lease that has been entered into with Matrix Oil and Clayton Williams covers approximately 7 acres of the surface area, although because that's the total that will be used for the long term. It doesn't cover all of the areas that may be disturbed during construction. Those will be temporarily leased to Matrix. And longstanding California law says that the subsurface mineral rights are included in your fee interest. There's both case law going back over 100 years and statutory law in the Public Resources Code that allow the city to engage in subsurface activities on land which is restricted for park and recreational purposes. What the law requires is that those activities, that is, those subsurface activities, do not materially impair or substantially interfere with the public use of that land as park and recreational land. Mr. Hall's opinion is essentially that given that there is less than 3% of the surface area of the land involved in the use, that does not constitute a material impairment, and it does not constitute substantially interfering with those park uses. There are a number of cases he goes through in his report which cover similar circumstances in which very small proportion of the surface area was impacted for subsurface activities. He talks about the public trust doctrine, which, as you know, has been the subject of some litigation with the city. That doctrine essentially requires that property be used consistent with the intent and purpose of its original dedication. And courts have routinely, in considering that doctrine, upheld similar proposed subsurface uses as long as the surface use was incidental to the subsurface use. Excuse me, I need a little water. In fact, there's a court opinion that is quoted in Mr. Hall's opinion that I just wanted to refer to. Conveyance for park use not only carries all oil and mineral rights, but also the right to develop the same in a manner not inconsistent with the use of the surface of the land for park purposes. And again, Public Resources Code Section 7057 explicitly allows park property to be leased by cities and counties for mineral exploration and retrieval, so long as the park purpose is not substantially interfered with, and explicitly allows all funds from those leases to go into the city's general fund or the county's general fund, as the case may be.
Which case is that?
That's a Public Resources Code section, 7507. I'm sorry, 7057. Little dyslexic tonight. Under the Public Trust Doctrine and Mr. Holopine's under Proposition A, the city has broad discretion to balance the public interests and consider several factors in determining whether the surface uses are substantial. And those are things like temporary construction impacts, the amount or quantity of surface area to be used, the aesthetics that are built into the proposed project, walls, screening, landscaping, mitigation, replacement, et cetera, environmental impacts, both long and short term, and the public trust doctrine issues. And I do want to refer to the preamble of Proposition A because it's sort of critical to his opinion. The preamble states that the intent is to preserve and enhance beach, wildlife, park, recreation, and natural lands, parklands acquired with its funds. Proposition A restrictions are designed to ensure that as a result of future sales, dispositions, or changes of surface use of acquired parklands, there is no net loss of parklands dedicated to the purposes of Proposition A. What that tells us is that, and I think Ms. Feldman touched on this in her report as well, Proposition A was not designed to restrict or confine the use of subsurface rights, such as oil and mineral extraction. And the engineering report, which was also referred to in Ms. Feldman's report, assessed the benefits. What the engineering report has to do when you do an assessment district is say, well, here's the benefits that are going to be derived from this assessment, and here's the cost. And we have to make sure that the people bearing the cost are receiving the benefit of that assessment. And so we have to say what is the benefit and how it actually benefits the parcels that are assessed. What they did in assessing that was take a look at what those surface uses are. They're all recreational surface uses, open space. Everything that is talked about in the engineer's report reflects an evaluation of the surface uses of the property. Nobody cared much about what was going on underneath the land so long as the surface recreational and open space benefits were in fact being provided to those who were assessed under Proposition A. Again, then the opinion goes on to explain, as Ms. Feldman recited earlier, that a Proposition A recipient may, under Section 16, change the use of any non-proposition of any property acquired with Proposition A funds to a use not authorized by Proposition A, so long as there's no net loss of parklands. There's two different sections at play here, Subdivision A and Subdivision B. Subdivision A is really focused on that net use issue or net loss issue. The second provision deals with the treatment of those changed uses. If we have an entire parcel that was acquired with Proposition A that would be taken out of Proposition A use, the first paragraph of Subdivision B would deal with that. The second paragraph of Subdivision B would apply where there's only a small portion or less than the entire parcel being changed to use. And that would involve a sale, disposal, or any change of use. There, the city, in this case, and the district as the reviewing entity are required to take steps to ensure there's no net loss of parkland surface use. These provisions do not control or even purport to control subsurface uses, mineral extraction, or any other subsurface use of the property. What it does cover, though, is the surface area that would be impacted by the matrix lease. In this case, Mr. Hall's opinion is that it is the 7-acre compact site. The rental fee for that is what the value would be in terms of evaluating what we would have to do to replace parkland. Now, Ms. Feldman was correct. We can either replace it or we can pay an equivalent amount of money to the district to replace it. How that equivalent amount of money is measured would be the value of what we are changing. And Mr. Hall's opinion is that would be the lease price of that land, not the royalty payments for the oil. That's separate and apart and is, in his opinion, solely for the benefit of the city of Whittier, which owns the land. It would only be the surface value that would be affected and required to be used to acquire other land. But given that the standard is no net loss, the recommendation for a land swap and/or the city acquiring appropriate replacement property is the one that Mr. Hall has recommended, and I think is consistent with Ms. Feldman's recommendation as well. There was a question asked about the process for approving the lease, and I think that the last part of the opinion really addresses that. It is true that the lease must be approved by the Regional Park District, and there is a process both in Proposition A that discusses that and also in the agreement between the district and the city. One point I would like to highlight is that if there is a difference between what's in Proposition A and what's in the agreement, the language of Proposition A trumps, both from a statutory perspective and because of the agreement itself. It specifically says that any inconsistency between those two documents would be resolved by resort to the language of Proposition A itself.